Welcome to the LSIA schlongway. Yeah, I couldn't really think of anything else to call it, but we'll come back to that later. So what's this video about? Well, given Rockstar's insistence on giving us absolutely awful weekly updates, I'm doing something different this week. And this came as a suggestion from Benny's, which was to look at the effect that the different front and rear wings have on things like tyre life and grip within GTA Online. So I was kind of up for the challenge. I thought, that's not going to be too difficult, is it, really? There's only 4 cars. I mean, how many combinations can there be? And then I did the first bit of many bits of maths for this video. So yes, there are 4 cars, but they have between 6 and 13 different rear wing options and between 5 and 10 front wing options. You factor that into the 3 different tyre types and you've got a total of 5,430 potential combinations of front and rear wing and tyre. And you can bet your ass I am not testing all of them. Just to put that into, just to give you some sense of the scale, to do so I would need to do 59,000 laps. And let's be honest, as good as this track is for what it's for, I don't fancy doing 59,000 laps, especially considering it would take me over 16 days to do that. And that's 16 24-hour days with no breaks for, like food and sleep and, other things that you need to do in the day. So I came up with a plan. And that plan was to take each of the 4 cars, test them in high downforce and low downforce trim on both the hard and the soft compound tyre, and then do some comparisons. But in order to do that, I needed a track, and I needed a track that would make this test as fair and equal as possible. Because what I needed to do was remove the biggest potential point of failure. Cue the montage.
What follows is a brief construction montage. We hope you enjoyed this brief construction montage.
So after a few changes to make sure that this didn't keep happening, and by a few changes I mean deleting the whole thing and remaking it from scratch, I present to you the Chihuahua Hot Dogs LSIA schlongway. So this track is designed to torture the tyres, because what I wanted to do is get through the test as quickly as possible, well, not as quickly as possible, as consistently as possible, whilst removing as many options for, shall we say, driver error as possible. So this track consists of 2 straights ended by 2 full speed corners. Aptly named, that one is Coffin Corner. After each corner I will come to a full stop and then accelerate back up to full speed. So what that basically means is you've got 2 full speed corners that in high downforce trim all of these cars can take without braking and without even a lift off, and you've also got 2 high braking incidents and 2 acceleration incidents, and what the plan is to keep going until that happens. So what you may not realise is that with the open wheel races the tyres do wear and they will blow out as soon as they get worn. So this track was designed specifically to torture them until they burst. So what that remains for me now is to take 4 cars with 2 tyre options and 2 downforce options around this track for approximately 10 to 15 laps until the tyres burst. Cue montage number 2. So it's time to look at some results. And while I just talk through this, I'll just put these figures up on screen. So these are from Gaffer TV on Twitter, and these show you the actual downforce values for each of the wings within the game. Now this is quite important because as you can see by looking at this, the differences between a lot of them are tiny, almost minuscule. They're so small. For most of the wing options, when you go to LS Customs, you can't actually see the difference represented in the graphs that show you your levels of traction. So this is a nice reference if you need to go back and see the actual difference. So the way the tyres actually burn out is fairly brutal. You don't get much warning at all. What seems to happen is one corner before they burst, you will lose all grip. So you'll see there's a little indicator in the bottom left of your corner. When that gets to dark red, you need to be thinking about pitting, because as soon as it hits the bright red, the chances are at any one of the next few corners you're going to lose all grip and crash off, and by the time you reach the corner after, you're more than likely going to have a tyre burst. So always pit before you get to the bright red on this little indicator. So that said, what do the results tell us? Well, for everything but the R88, the difference between the hard and soft tyre on the lap time was negligible. The soft tyres are faster by less than half of a second on average, and as little as a tenth of a second in some cases. Now the R88 is the exception to this, because on the R88 the soft tyres are significantly faster, and by that I mean they're 5 seconds a lap faster on the high downforce setup and 7 seconds a lap faster on the low downforce setup. Bearing in mind this is approximately a 40-second lap, so with the R88 that's a significant difference. But for all of the other cars, for the DR1, the PR4 and the BR8, the difference is pretty much negligible. Now when it comes to high and low downforce, again the difference is negligible. There seemed to be a fairly even split between the two. Sometimes the high downforce was faster, sometimes the low downforce was faster, certainly within the margin for statistical error, and there was a very even split between the two. Also, for most of the cars, the difference between the number of laps for the tyres to burst between the high and low downforce settings was very small. In general, it was around half a lap or so in favour of the lower downforce option. So with the low downforce option, you're going to get about half a lap further before your tyres burst versus the high downforce. So on the most part, what this tells me really is that the wings don't seem to make a significant difference. In general, there is a slight benefit in favour of the low downforce setup, but it's really not significant, less than a second in almost all cases, but over a long race that would make a difference. But the difference between the hard and soft tyres on tyre wear is very significant. So the hard tyres last between 28 and 39% longer, with most lasting somewhere in the region of 36% longer. That's more than a third. So that means for every 3 laps you do on the soft tyre, if you're on the hard tyre, you'll be able to do 4 with the same amount of wear rate. So on a 20 lap race, every car on soft tyres would need 1 more stop than a car on hard tyres. Now that adds up because the longer the race, the worse this gets. So for example, I worked this out on a 100 lap race, which is a lot. So if you did a 100 lap race in the BR8, on hard tyres you'd need to stop 7 times, and on softs you'd need to stop 12 times. So that makes a significant difference. So summarising, I would say that on the most part, your downforce setup is not going to make a huge amount of difference. But the longer the race is, the more important it will be to be on hard tyres, as the small gains in speed you get for the soft tyres are massively outweighed by the additional pit stops you'll need to make if you use them. And there we have it, there's my highly scientific review of the wings, downforce and tyre wear in the open wheel races in GTA Online. If you like this stuff, please do drop a like and subscribe, and I'd love to see what you all think in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one, which if Rockstar bless us with a decent update, we should be able to get back to some proper car reviews. Take care, and I'll see you all later.